What is up, my hunting brothers and sisters? This week we're going to dive into the 5 reasons why you should be head shooting turkeys with your bow instead of body shooting this spring when you go turkey hunting. So sit back and sit tight. Let's head chop some turkeys. The number 1 reason to head shoot turkeys with your bow versus body shoot them is a clearly defined point of aim. When we first start bow hunting, we're taught one thing: pick a spot. Whether that's target shooting and picking the X marks the spot on the target, or say on a deer picking a highlight or whatever, but pick a spot. Now on a turkey, the one spot that is clearly defined more than anything else is either the red or the white or the blue in the head configuration. Nothing else in nature looks like it. When we go to body shoot a bird, the spot is never clearly defined. So when you look at it, unfortunately, a turkey doesn't come with a dot on it to show you where to aim. And when that turkey comes in and he's strutting versus walking in or a semi-strut, that spot can change. If he's here, head on, that spot might be right there. But now if he turns, all of a sudden, that spot might be right there. If he turns further, that spot might be right back here. And then as he goes in and out of strut, that spot is continually changing and your perception of where to aim is changing. The beauty of the head and neck shot is it's a clearly defined point of aim. No matter what position he is. Here the strutter's coming right at you, it's obvious right there. He comes in and this time he's sideways to you, boom, right across there. Same with this way. The only time that that is not present on a strutting gobbler is when he would be facing away like this. And at that point, you've got all the time in the world to move and to be patient and wait on him to come around and give you that shot opportunity. In a non-strutting gobbler, pretty much the same deal. This red or white, depending on what mood he's in head, is clearly defined no matter what position he gets himself into, even facing away most of the time. So again, a clearly defined point of aim. Reason number 2 that you should be head shooting turkeys instead of body shooting them with their bow is the size of the target. We're going to do a size comparison here in a second, but the size of a turkey's head and neck is as large, if not larger, than its vital zone inside its body cavity. Now let's take a look at if you were going to body shoot a bird. We've already talked about it's hard to pick a spot. A lot of guys are using a large mechanical broadhead. Nothing wrong with that. But when it's flying, it's essentially a field tip. So when it's flying, okay, you're going to take a field tip arrow and you're going to run it through and you're going to try and hit that vital zone. Okay, when we're head and neck shooting, we're going to use a head lopping broadhead. This happens to be a Magnus bullhead. It's about 3 3/4 inch diameter cut zone when it's spinning. Ideally, your point of aim is right here, but you have such a huge margin of air up, down, bottom, all over the place that your actual effective range that you're aiming for is a big circle like this, which is much bigger range than what you're dealing with in a body shot. I'm going to show you an illustration right now. Time for art class. It's been said that a turkey's vitals in its body are the sizes of a softball. I would argue that they're maybe a little bit bigger than a softball, maybe a softball in diameter, but more of like an egg-shaped softball. So I'd say they come back a little bit further. Turkey's vitals in its body are actually really small when you count just the heart, the lungs, the liver. I don't count the guts as vitals because that is a very hit or miss situation in turkey hunting. So that being said, here's a 2-scale drawing of a turkey's head and neck. And you can see in a turkey's head and neck, the spinal column that comes up, the brain area, and this whole area in here is just full of blood vessels. So they bleed out very easily. So let's take a Magnus bullhead. Again, choose your head chopper of choice, but this is about 3 3/4. Now, I've seen turkeys die with just getting nicked about a 1/16 to an 1/8 of an inch from a bullhead. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick this within about a 1/16 of an inch. And we're just going to kind of draw some dots, and then we'll connect the lines of the dots as we go around. And I'm off my paper, but that's okay. I don't mind drawing on my workbench. Kind of do something like that. And we won't really count this little area there. So we'll kind of come back in. And I'm just going to stop with the red, even though I've seen turkeys die down in here. So, going back to about where I was. With the Magnus bullhead, that gives, assuming you're going to get an 1/8 to a 1/16 of an inch contact, okay, anywhere in that red, that gives you a kill zone that big. Remember, effectively, a turkey's vitals are a softball. That area is much bigger than a softball, even if you oblong that softball just a little bit. In fact, a softball is just a little bit bigger than his head alone. So how big is that? You're getting basically a kill swath of about 8 inches roughly at the widest by almost 11 inches tall. So you're getting an area roughly 8 inches by 11 inches. That is over 80 square inches of kill zone. Okay? A softball, by comparison, is roughly 4 inches diameter. I'm sure somebody can look up the actual specs. Roughly 4-inch diameter. Pi times 4 inches squared over 4. You can cancel out one of the 4s. 4 times 3.14 is about 12 we'll call it 12.5 roughly. So let's round up, we'll call it 13 inches squared of kill zone inside the body. In an oblong, I'll even call it 15 inches square if you oblong it. The point is, the head and neck is a much, much larger target when you're using a head chopping type of broadhead. Obviously, the better choice is a head chop right here. But I'm kind of biased. I've killed a lot of birds with head and neck shot broadhead. The number 3 reason that you should be head shooting turkeys instead of body shooting them with your bow is it is either a clean kill or a clean miss. It is very, 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 very unlikely that you're going to have a wounded bird on a head or neck shot. So when you look at a head or neck shot, basically, as we talked about the different size of the targets, you can just get in here and clip it. There's so many blood vessels in a turkey's head and neck that you can get him almost anywhere, even down in here, and you're going to have yourself a clean kill. And the beauty is, it's a clean miss as well, and he walks away. You hit him in the side, in the body, and it's going to bounce off. You hit him up here in the feathers, it's going to go through the feathers and go on. Yeah, he loses a few feathers, he comes back to fight another day. The problem with the body shots and a regular broadhead is if you're off and you go through any other part of him, get down in his guts, and that bird can be lost or wounded. So you get a clean, quick kill with the head and neck shot, and you get a clean miss, which is a huge benefit for me who strives to be an ethical hunter. And just for a little proof, I'd rather live with the sting of a miss than a wounded bird. So here's a couple of my misses. The number 4 reason why you should be head shooting turkeys instead of body shooting them is that the tracking job is generally measured in feet rather than yards. The majority of the birds that I've killed over the years with head and neck shots have dropped either in their tracks or gone maybe 3 or 4 feet is all. I had one time that went about 40 yards, and that was because I actually hit a blind strap before I hit the turkey. Outside of that, all of mine have dropped real fast. On a body shot bird, yes, I've dropped them in their track zone a body shot as well. I know a lot of people do, but the majority of body shot birds that I've ever shot, when I found them, the tracking job was measured in hundreds of yards. So it's hard to blood trail a turkey, especially one that's running or if it's got its wings under it and it's flying. So again, why would you want to track a turkey that doesn't bleed well, can fly, and can run? No thanks. I'll shoot them in the head and neck and drop them in the tracks every time. And the fifth reason why you should be head and neck shooting turkeys is no meat damage. When you're shooting them in the head and neck, you're not getting into the vital cavity, so you're not messing up that meat. There really isn't that much meat on a wild turkey anyway, so why would you want to ruin what good meat is there? I want to show you, last fall I was actually deer hunting from a ground blind, and I actually body shot a turkey, and I dropped him in his tracks. I was deer hunting, nice big tom came in, and I killed him. And it was a beautiful tom. And right here's a picture of him, as you can see. It was a beautiful tom. If I can get it to focus. Focus. Okay. There was the exit wound damage right there. And that was the meat damage. And that was sitting in a ground blind. And I killed him with a fixed blade broadhead. And that was the meat damage I had. And I dropped him in his tracks. Why do I want to do that? Why do I want to waste? I felt horrible after that, and it just reaffirmed why over the last 10 plus years I've only been head and neck shooting turkeys. Okay, so those are the 5 reasons why you should be head shooting turkeys with a bow. So obviously there's got to be some drawbacks to it, right? Well, I guess arguably there might be a couple. One is you're going to have to use a longer arrow, okay? Because most of your head chopping broadheads are big and they're going to get into your riser or potentially your sight ring. So you need to use a longer arrow and you need to use a stiffer arrow. Okay? There's physics behind this. There's aerodynamic forces when you put these big airplane wings out on the front end of an arrow. So you got to have a stiffer arrow as well, and you got to have it fletched right. Now obviously I work a lot with Magnus broadheads, and so I'm going to push the Magnus bullhead and our system of arrows. Okay, and I've done a whole series of videos to help you and explain why these arrows are so important. Also, the tune of your bow can be very critical. The faster your bow shoots, the more critical the tune is. You really don't need a lot of pounds to head chop a turkey. I've seen youth bows as low as 35 pounds take a turkey out in a head and neck shot. Okay, I personally hunt with about 53 pounds. You don't need a 70 or 80 pound whitetail setup for head chopping turkeys. So the tune is critical. The faster your bow shoots, the more critical the tune is and the more critical your shooting form is. So those are really the 2 biggest drawbacks from a fundamental standpoint. But really probably the biggest hurdle that most hunters have is, I always say, shooting turkeys in the head is a head game. And the game is in your head, not the turkey's. If you tell yourself you can do it, you can do it. Arguably, I believe shooting a turkey in the head at say 20 yards and closer is the easiest shot in all of bow hunting to pull off. Think about it. Let's go back to what we talked about earlier. The target zone is actually larger and the target is clear and defined, unlike on a body shot. So let me challenge you. Let's take a red can of Coke, Coca-Cola, and set it out 20 yards in front of you. And you take your bow hunting setup, and I'll throw a $100 bill out on the table and say, I'll bet you that you cannot hit that Coke can with your bow hunting setup at 20 yards. You are going to take that bet every single time, and chances are I'm going to lose that bet 9 times out of 10, if not more. Okay? It's the same principles. So shooting a turkey in the head is all in your head. That's it. So obviously there's got to be some merit to bow hunting turkeys and shooting them in the body, or else many guys wouldn't do it, right? Well, I would say that those arguments for the benefits of it are somewhat false. Probably the biggest advantage when it comes to shooting a turkey in the body with a bow is that most guys are using a large mechanical broadhead. Again, it flies like a field tip. So bow tune is not critical at all. So that would be the one merit I would say when it comes to body shooting turkeys. But once you cross that bridge of tuning your bow, It's really simple. Guys go out there, they bow hunt birds and they shoot for the body and they shoot for like a center of mass, which isn't right at all. And they end up getting frustrated and they lose birds. They get it back, they have meat damage. It kind of sours them. And if I was in that position too, and I didn't have any alternatives, I'd probably go back to gun hunting birds. But we have head chopping broadheads. And they are a game changer when it comes to bow hunting turkeys. So with that, I say God bless. Get out there this spring and go bow hunt turkeys. And I would strongly encourage you to head shoot them versus body shoot them when it comes to real bow. As always, it's a new day in the outdoors. Please watch the next video right down over here and click up here to subscribe to our channel. Thanks so much for tuning in. Be safe and have a great spring this year in the turkey woods.